Well, there are religious zealot lunatics. So I'm not interested. Like in the old days you couldn't even say like things that are factual about the settlers because people would be like anti-Semite. Of course they get to murder Muslims. Of course they do. No they don't. They don't. They're the bigots. They're nuts. They're lunatics. Yeah. And so they cause more war, more problems, more deaths than almost anyone on the planet. So get real about who the freaking settlers are. Some of the worst people on earth. So this past Sunday, as the Associated Press reports, dozens of Israeli settlers rioted around a military base in the Israeli-occupied West Bank, setting fires, vandalizing military vehicles, spraying graffiti, and attacking soldiers. Again, we're talking about Israeli on Israeli violence here. We're talking about settlers attacking, Israeli security forces. The Israeli military said that the infrastructure burned in the attack included systems that help thwart terrorist attacks and maintain security. The only terrorists in the West Bank are the settlers. Okay. So, let's get real about who the terrorists are. And you understand why they're writing against the IDF. Because the IDF showed up and only murdered 3 innocent Palestinians. They were trying to burn the whole village down. That's exactly right. Yes. And then they're like, what are you stopping us for? We were going to murder all of them. But by the way, IDF has been providing cover for the crimes committed by these settlers for how many years? For how many years? So you've created a monster now. Revel in it. Enjoy. Enjoy. This is what you have enabled. You just thought that it would never turn around and impact the IDF or Israeli security forces. They were just under the assumption that the only people who would be terrorized, the only people who would be run out of their own homes would be Palestinians. And by the way, there are also, Christians living in the West-occupied West Bank as well who also get terrorized by these people. But, they were under the assumption those are the only people who are going to be victimized. We don't have to worry about any Israeli dealing with these unhinged terrorists who have been raining terror on people living in the West Bank for many years now. One quick point. So Bethlehem is the home of Jesus, of course, and Christians live there. There's a church there. That church has been attacked before by settlers. And so they're not just attacking Muslims. They're saying Judea and Samaria, God told us, is Jewish settler land. And you Christians need to get out of here. You Muslims need to get out of here. Otherwise, we're going to kill you all on behalf of our God. I mean, there isn't any bigger terrorists in the world than those Israeli settlers who are constantly attacking Christian and Muslim Palestinians because they think God told them to steal their land. So, look, 6 suspects were allegedly apprehended and then transferred to the police in Israel. But this is my favorite part. Settlers were even caught on tape accusing the IDF of being Hamas. Let's watch. You guys eventually are going to have to find a new scapegoat. Like blaming Hamas for everything is kind of amazing. It's kind of amazing. Wow. No, I love that video. Good. Attack each other more. Like 2 of the worst forces on earth and the settlers somehow miraculously worse than the IDF, right? And to the settlers, they're such lunatics. They think the IDF is Hamas. It's amazing. It really is. Well, when your propaganda's gone too far is when you think the IDF is Hamas. And let me guess, the IDF is anti-Semitic, right? Okay. Look, I hope they do a 2-state solution. And this is the one time I'll cheer for the IDF. By the way, if the Israel becomes a safe haven for Jews who have 2-state solution, they don't attack anyone anymore and stop taking land, then I'm be super happy with the IDF, right? Okay. But the one time I'll cheer for them is if they do a 2-state solution and they grab those settlers and then drag them back into Israel. That is going to be a beautiful thing to see. I can't wait for that. I don't know that I'll ever see it in my lifetime. You won't. So look, Netanyahu, and because by the way, the Israeli government supports terrorists. That's why I'm not going to see it in my lifetime. That's why they keep encouraging them by giving them 22 new settlements because they love terrorists as long as they're murdering Muslims and Christians. Remember, the IDF in the West Bank is there to protect the settlers as they are running Palestinians out of their homes as they're burning villages. That's typically what happens. Now look, Netanyahu and even Itamar Ben-Gvir, a convicted terrorist, literally publicly claimed to condemn the settler attacks on the IDF, likely because attacks on IDF soldiers. Haaretz West Bank correspondent Hagar Shaf said are obviously always controversial in Israeli society, but attacking Palestinians not so controversial anymore. Opposition leader anymore like it was ever, it never was. Let's just be clear about that. Opposition leader Yair told Israel's army radio that the riots were carried out by Jewish terrorists, gangs of criminals who feel backed by the governing coalition because they've been backed by the governing coalition. Let's be real about that. You know what? Look, we were experiencing this a little bit. My family members are in Turkey, okay. Because Erdogan started letting in a lot more Muslim fundamentalists from Afghanistan, from Syria, from other places. And what it's doing is Turkey is a very secular country. So it's starting this huge conflict within the country. Not starting, it's been now for a while. And so the secular group feels impinging upon by the fundamentalists. And the fundamentalists are like, what do you mean? What God told us XYZ? Or fundamentalists from every religion believe that the God whispered in their ear that they're the back daddies, right? And everybody else is inferior to them and should serve them, right? So now Israel, you're not getting it. If you're a secular person in Israel, citizen, you think they're just going to stop at the Palestinians. No. Fundamentalists are nuts.